What's up, everyone? Aaron Nagler here with Cheesehead TV for your Packers Daily Chat. It's 5 o'clock Eastern or just after, which means I'm coming to you live on the Cheesehead TV Facebook page to chat about the Green Bay Packers and their tie with the Minnesota Vikings on Sunday, 29-29. Obviously, a dissatisfying feeling for everyone involved. No one likes a tie, but it's better than a loss. Although, as Aaron Rodgers said, feels a lot more like an L than anything else. Clearly the biggest talking point coming out of this game is the roughing the passer penalty to Clay Matthews. I'm going to try to avoid that as much as possible. I know that'll be unlikely in the comment section and or for myself because it is a predominant component of yesterday's contest, but I'm going to try to limit it to the fact that it's an absurd call. The NFL obviously doubling down on it today. I'm not going to try and overwhelm you with discussion of an awful, awful moment for the league. Matt starts us off with, I miss football. Yeah, starting to feel that way. Josh says, Clay needs to go, start Gilbert. I don't know about that. I thought Clay affected the pocket a couple times yesterday. He was instrumental in Kenny Clark having a sack. Much more so for me is where was Nick Perry? Nick Perry was MIA for much of the afternoon. If he can't get home on that bull rush, he doesn't have much of a counter. And to me, I would much rather see Gilbert out there rushing the passer than Nick Perry down the stretch, especially in the second half. Gilbert's got a little more bend, a little more ability across, around the edge. That, to me, was the number one kind of question mark. And that, and of course, throwing out Kyler Fackrell with the game on the line in overtime. I understand guys are spent, etc. But again, Gilbert out there, maybe move Clay inside. Get your best pass rushers on the field, at least to me. John, yes, John says, I cannot believe Bryce did not play the ball. Obviously, in regards to the Thielen touchdown there late in the second half, it's incredible to me. I thought my buddy Dusty put it up nicely on Twitter. You'll see it on my timeline if you go and look. He seems to be tracking the ball, and he pulls up at the last second, and I understand the idea that some have put forth that he's afraid of maybe lighting up the receiver and getting a penalty and or knocking Jair Alexander off of his coverage. Those are both possible. But to me, it's much more about go get the football. You have every right as a player on the football field, 1 of 22. The ball is just as much available to you as it is to anyone else on that football field. The ball hawks in the league, they know this. They go and they get it without complication, without apology. That's your football. Go get it. Pulling up at the last second just blew my mind. Yeah, both real time and watching it back again. Thoughts on Alexander? I said in gut reactions afterwards, they have found a player there. It was funny, there was a play where they tried once again, much like the Bears did, to try and catch him out on off coverage, where they ran Kyle Rudolph out in the flat, and they tried to get him on a quick hitter on a third down. And Jair Alexander did the exact same thing he did last week, where he shed the initial tackle and made the tackle, or the initial block and made the tackle for no gain. This kid is a player. He's there in coverage. He can shed blocks on the perimeter. You saw him yesterday come after the quarterback a couple times, including one time getting home. That guy is everything that they probably hoped for when they selected him in the first round. Peter asks, honest thoughts on the Packers defense. I actually thought they played pretty well right up until they ran out of gas yesterday. Obviously, Mike McCarthy said it today in his press conference. They didn't handle the Kevin King injury very well. I mean, that's obviously the understatement of the year so far. The combination of having Devon House out there and then Kentrell Bryce as the lone deep safety, that was throwing gasoline on the fire as far as I'm concerned. And I understand Mike Pettine's probably getting used to these guys still, maybe putting them in positions that probably not best suited to the Vikings. Did a good job of taking advantage of King's injury, specifically on that big bomb to Diggs, where they got Diggs lined up on House. That's clearly a matchup that favors them. But Bryce has to recognize that. And how Bryce doesn't kind of shade to Diggs and rather takes Treadwell underneath, that kind of blows my mind. But these are the things, it's early in the year. You got to hope they continue to grow, continue to improve. Perhaps they come up with some better ways of battling when one of their frontline guys goes out. Because, injuries happen. It's part of the NFL. Every single team has to deal with them. And the Packers' continuation of a theme under Dom Capers, which was when these guys get injured, everything falls apart. Well, we saw a continuation of that yesterday. And some of that is on the personnel group, too. Don't forget, they traded away Lindsey Pipkins, who I would have kept 100 times over Devon House. But they determined they needed an inside linebacker who apparently wasn't going to play a whole lot from scrimmage, with all these multiple defensive back sets. But that was a determination they made. They traded away a young, promising corner, and to their detriment, I would say. But they wanted the experience that House provided. It didn't seem to help them yesterday. Any updates on King's injury? Nothing. We won't get anything. McCarthy was asked about it today in his press conference, but he said, as would be expected, he wouldn't have anything till midweek. You can bet we'll start to find out things on Wednesday. First injury report of the week will come out late Wednesday afternoon. 2 minutes with the lead in the ball. The ball game should have been wrapped up, similar to the NFC title game. Mike McCarthy laid an egg. Well, just like that NFC title game, I think there's a combination of factors at play there, but I completely agree with those who are chiding Mr. McCarthy for his play calling after the Clinton-Dix interception. Just run the ball. You've got a gimpy quarterback. You've got the ball. Make them use their timeouts. I understand the thinking of going for the end zone, and he is in a bit of a rock and a hard place where he's damned if he does and he's damned if he doesn't. People are going to kill him for not being aggressive if he just runs it out. But that's the smart football play. And I think, they've got their shot of winning that ball game if they just run the ball 3 times, make Minnesota use all their timeouts, maybe hanging on to one because the 2-minute warning is there. But, yeah, to me, that's the one spot you could kind of kill McCarthy. But, again, a lot of things went into that game yesterday that weren't on McCarthy. I thought the game was wrapped after the Clinton-Dix pick. Yep, Matt, a lot of people thought that. Jess Hernandez says, time to start having the quarterbacks wear flags. We are not far off from that, according to NFL Network's Tom Pelissero. Put it up on NFL Network today that not only is the league doubling down on Tony Corrente's call yesterday, but they are including the hit that Clay Matthews made on Kirk Cousins in their instructional tape on what not to do, on what will be a penalty. Yes, tackling has become illegal. They have outlawed football in the National Football League. Welcome to 2018. Why not a quick pass on 12's last pass attempt? Everyone saw the damn blitz coming. Daniel, Aaron Rodgers agrees with you. Aaron Rodgers said after the game he was really upset with himself for those last 2 plays. The fumble on the 2nd and 1, which was clearly going to be a first down. It's an RPO where he decided to keep it, and he just ended up fumbling it. And then he said, right after that, his last play, the blitz, he tried to make something happen. He tried to find something downfield. That's on him. He took total ownership of it, said he should have hit Cobb in the flat on the left side. And in his words, maybe Cobb picks it up, maybe not, but it doesn't push them back deeper out of field goal range. It's an unfortunate moment. And, it's funny because it plays into people want to always blame Mike McCarthy, and they used to always want to blame Dom Capers for whatever failures and shortcomings the Packers have had over the years in late game situations. But, Aaron Rodgers is part of this. They have to. The defense couldn't get the ball back for Aaron Rodgers. That's what we've heard time and time again. Well, the defense did it yesterday. The defense got the ball back for Aaron Rodgers. And Aaron Rodgers gave the game away in those last 2 plays that he was on the field. He is part of the equation. What is the NFL's reasoning for ending a game in a tie? How does this make the game better? Ties have always been part of the game, well, as long as I can remember. If you don't score within the time frame of overtime, it's a tie. I don't know how it's supposed to make the game better, but you can't ask them to play 5-hour games. What about the run call on the first play of the last drive? Go for the win, not overtime. See? Mike McCarthy, rocking a hard place. If he does one thing, he's good, but somebody else is mad. He does the other thing, these people are upset, but the picking apart of the play calling, I understand it's a reflexive nature of football fandom, but individual play calls are really hard for me to sit back and go, yeah, that should have been this. As far as game plan, overall ideas, moments in the game, game theory, what have you, that I understand maybe looking and picking apart a little bit, but man, call by call, that's hard. Defense looked great until Kevin King went down. Devon House is who we thought he was. Glenn, there's nothing in that statement that I can disagree with. College football OT should be implemented. No, sudden death should be implemented. Sudden death was perfect. Sudden death was excellent. And then everybody started complaining, spearheaded by Peter King's whining. And then it all came to a head after, Favre didn't get the ball back in the playoffs, et cetera, and then you have this jumbled mess we have now. Sudden death was perfect, and they ruined it. How does Lane Taylor get called for holding? Brandon, because they saw a guy go to the ground. Mark Tauscher put it perfectly on Twitter yesterday during the game. Not every time a guy goes to the ground does it mean there was a hold. We've seen this throughout the years, though. Corey Linsley's been the victim of this a couple of times, where he just dominates his opponent, puts him on the ground, and he gets called for holding. But Lane Taylor's wasn't even that yesterday. Sheldon Richardson literally just fell over. And Taylor's hand just happened to be on his shoulder, and he got called for holding. That's just an atrocious call. Running back situation for next week at Washington. Jones coming back. Ty Williams still there. David, I think you'll see Jones mixed in. I don't think you're going to see a ton of him. I think it's going to be really hard for Mike to justify taking Jamal Williams off the field after his first 2 weeks. He's played extremely well. But I do think they will try to have a few drives where Jones is the featured back, get him some packages, so to speak. But I'll be very surprised if Williams his usage is reduced greatly. Anyone in particular you see being let go to make room for Aaron Jones? Not in particular. I've posited it a couple times here. I believe one of the wide receivers would make sense. You saw yet again yesterday, both Jamon Moore and St. Brown were down while Valdez-Scantling had his first NFL reception. But maybe they make it one of the inside linebackers, or maybe they make it, I don't know, one of the defenders that isn't playing. Anyone in particular? I live in the Twin Cities. I go back home for 3 to 4 games a year. I always go to the game in Minnesota and always do a road trip with my wife to an away game, and then I lost the comment. Sorry, guys. As far as if you're picking an away game, go to the New England game if you can afford it. Jimmy Graham was used more yesterday. He definitely was a handful for the Vikings secondary. Donnie, I agree. This is going to be very much the case, I would think, throughout the season. You're going to see games where he's featured and games where he's, not I'm going to say an afterthought, but he's kind of taken away and, focused on by the defense, driving the ball elsewhere. But, Aaron Rodgers always says, he throws to the open guy. If you're open, he's going to find you, he's going to throw you the football. And that's exactly what happened with Jimmy Graham yesterday. Is playing 6+ defensive backs consistently a realistic strategy moving forward? Jim, I think that it'll be a case-by-case basis. I think they're getting their best athletes on the field, their best football players, and I think a lot of it will be matchup dependent. Now, and some of that is going to be driven by health of the football team. If you've got Aaron Jones and Oren Burks back, I think you're going to see a lot more of them than additional corners. But I think it'll be matchup dependent mostly, and Oren Burks getting healthy will drive some of it. What do you think of Tremon's playing yesterday? I thought he played well. I know he gave up a pretty decent reception, like a 15-yarder, when he's playing off coverage, and then the touchdown to Diggs. The touchdown to Diggs is really tough. I can't fault him for that. That's really good design from the Vikings, getting that multiple motion from Diggs to make sure they're in man, and then to run across the formation under the rub. That's just really well designed. It's really hard for me to kill Tremon on that. I didn't love to see the off coverage on Diggs, but Diggs is going to blow right by him if they're stride for stride. So I understand why he had to defer to his speed. But overall, I thought Tremon played well. I thought he came up and tackled. I thought he shed blocks on the perimeter and helped in the run game. Overall, a pretty good game. Do you agree with the call on Devontae Adams with a no TD? Do you mean the one that Kendricks kind of swiped out of there? Yeah, I don't think he ever had full control. Usually I'm always in favor of if they have control, even for a second in the end zone, that should be a touchdown. That's the way football was for a very long time until the NFL decided to screw with it like they do everything else. But I didn't think he ever had a moment of control in the end zone. You saw the ball come in. It was certainly, in his possession for a moment, but I would never have called anything close to control. And then Kendrick swats at it, and then it kind of falls out. I thought that was a fine no call. They couldn't beat our one-legged QB even with all the chances they had. That's fair, James. I wouldn't, dismiss what the Vikings did yesterday. That's a very good football team, and they're going to be reckoned with as the year goes on. And they finally admitted their mistake with their kicker today. They cut the guy who missed 3 field goals, their draft pick, and signed Dan Bailey, former Cowboys kicker. I'm going to be interested in the defensive coaching staff's comments on how they will coach and teach tacklers so that roughing the passer doesn't happen in the future. Glenn, Mike McCarthy was asked about that today, and he said they're not going to change a thing. They, have proper technique that they are taught. Clearly with this new edict from the league about Clay Matthews' tackle being illegal on the quarterback, maybe they make an adjustment, but it's hard for me to see. I mean, it's a game of football. It's tackling. And as someone on Twitter pointed out, I can't remember who it was, but you're not allowed to go high on the quarterback. You're not allowed to go low on the QB. And now, apparently, it's illegal to tackle him in the midsection as well. So good luck, defenders. Have a great time. Does a tie hurt us when it comes down to the playoffs? Tyler, only time will tell. They have wrestled with this before. Most recently, 2013. They got in with a tie on their resume that year. It all depends on what happens. And you have to think, the fact that they tied the Vikings, so they'll most likely, it's very early yet, but most likely be fighting for the division later on. That helps them in that regard. But as far as the rest of the NFC, we'll have to see how it plays out. Our pass rushers becoming obsolete with the emphasis on protecting the quarterbacks at all costs. No, frankly, I don't think they're becoming obsolete. Clearly, the game will change, the game will evolve, as will the players. Affecting the quarterback will always be there'll always be a primary goal on defense. And getting athletes who can get after the quarterback and disrupt the offense and disrupt the quarterback will always be at a premium. Breaking news, quarterback now to wear flags. Jim, it feels like we're not too far off from that. Set up a GoFundMe page if 52 gets a fine. I think he's okay. I think he's got it. As he said in the locker room last night, he doesn't want to get fined anymore for saying anything. We'll see what happens there. Line looks good when healthy. Yeah, Eric, I thought so. As far as there were 1 or 2 pressures where clearly they got kind of out-schemed, so to speak. But for the most part, I think, they held up very well. And McCray in particular, I want to give Justin McCray a shout-out because he was getting a lot of grief last week, and I thought he played a pretty darn good game yesterday. There were a couple running plays where he had guys moved well out, throwing them out the club. I like to see it. If we wave a Super Bowl in their QB's face, they will choke. Don't have to worry about roughing the passer. It's an interesting thought, Drew. The call on Taylor is a worse call. I agree. We talked about it a little bit earlier. Well, Lloyd, that's very nice of you to say. Thank you, sir. What else we got? Biggest hole on the roster outside of edge depth? It's got to be a safety, right? I mean, inside linebacker, I see that there's, issues there, what have you, but I think they have enough talent when Burks comes back. At safety, Bryce is an inconsistent player. He's got talent, but his mistakes cost him twice yesterday. Touchdowns. And with viable options sitting out there in free agency, it's hard for me to, give that a pass. But for the most part, I think they've got depth everywhere. What kind of impression did Minnesota leave you with overall? Like I've been saying, I think they're a super talented team. They're a legit contender. I think you saw 2 of the better teams in the league going at it yesterday. Packers are going to be kicking themselves for a long time, letting that one get away. Do you see Josh Jones getting significant playing time down the line, or is he too much of a coverage liability? I think he'll see snaps. I'll be very surprised if they leave him in a kind of deep center field role like they did with Bryce yesterday. I don't doubt defensive coordinators will try to be scheming up, tight ends, backs to get on him because he did struggle in coverage down the stretch last year. He didn't show much improvement during camp this year, but as we've seen time and time again, what the guys do in the summer and what they do once they get on the football field can be very different because they're working through stuff in the summer. We'll see if he can take a jump. It's too bad that he's been injured these first 2 weeks. The first, number one thing Jones needs to do is get on the field. All right, everybody, I'm gonna jump, and I can't thank you guys enough. Lots of you here today, the Monday after a game. Thank you so much for all the questions. I'm sorry if I couldn't get to yours. They do fly by fast, but I will be back tomorrow. And in the meantime, make sure you're checking everything we got at cheeseheadtv.com. We're here for you, Packers fans worldwide, and it's always amazing how many of you check in from around the world. Thank you so much. Till tomorrow, talk to you guys soon.